is Charette Estes, and I'm with Access Interpreting, and I'm here today to talk to you about the paleo diet. The name paleo is actually a reference to the Paleolithic era, which is a time when humans believed to have eaten the most ideal diet for optimal human health. And often the paleo diet is referred to as the primal diet or the caveman diet. But it's more than just a diet, because the word diet refers to something that's temporary. Paleo is a lifestyle. It's the idea that we should try to emulate the way that our ancestors ate and engaged in the type of activities that they did. The point is to try to reestablish our connection to nature. The paleo community encourages a more overall approach to optimal health, and they do this through selective carb, high protein, moderate fat diet, and a high intensity and strength building exercises, and a focus on self-care and healthy lifestyle choices. But the paleo diet contradicts much of the commonly accepted dietary standards in the U.S., and that's commonly referred to as the Standard American Diet, also known as SAD, and that's mostly the type of standard diet that we have here in the U.S. There's a heavy amount of carbs, very low protein, and even lower fat intake. Because this type of diet can make us really insensitive to insulin, and that leads to very preventable type diseases like heart disease, diabetes, and cancer. And the paleo diet challenges typical eating norms of modern-day society, and the goal is to combat these conditions. And the goal is to eat like our ancestors did, and that way we'll hopefully avoid these diseases. So what does the paleo diet look like? Well, it requires that we eliminate some foods that have proven to be problematic for the human body. And the basic guideline is to eat meat, vegetables, nuts and seeds, some fruit, a little bit of starch, and no sugar. There's a special emphasis on the elimination of things that can damage the gut, like gluten, and foods that can cause inflammation, like dairy products, and all food that contains preservatives. Generally, dieters are often encouraged to shop on the periphery of their grocery stores or at the farmer's market. But the goal is to avoid prepackaged food, because usually they have a high amount of processed levels and lack of nutrients. It's also encouraged to eat meats that are raised in optimal diets of their own. The goal is to make sure that the fat content of the animal is also at a healthy level for human consumption, and that there were no genetically modified organisms used. Many members actually started buying their own grass-fed animals straight from the farmer to make sure that the animal has been raised in optimal standards. How does the paleo diet compare to the standard American diet? Well, USDA has prescribed a balanced diet, is what they call, as you can see here on the PowerPoint. But paleo community members, they feel that it's not really derived from research, these suggestions, but it's very heavily influenced from the mass food industry. And we all know that the mass food industry has a very heavy stock in corn, wheat, soy, and other products that can be cheaply and massively produced. Unfortunately, these types of food don't support optimal health, and it's hard to avoid all of these processed substances in prepackaged foods. So what is caloric restriction? Well, there's still some discussion within the paleo community about whether or not caloric restriction is beneficial. Caloric restriction has been found to increase life expectancy in mice, and it's often compared to back when our ancestors go through intermittent fasting phases. Because when they were hungry, they couldn't just open up the cupboard and get something that they wanted to eat. They actually had to go out and hunt it and gather it. Sometimes food was scarce and hard to catch. But the paleo lifestyle does not encourage drastic caloric restriction that many other fad diets do, because we regard food as a fuel for performance, and we need that performance for our day-to-day activities. Another important component is regular exercise, and that involves varied, functional, high-intensity movement. Speaking of exercise, exercise is an integral part of the paleo diet. There is no specific prescribed form of exercise There are many paleo members that are found promoting CrossFit or something that's very similar to CrossFit, but whatever exercise routine you prefer, it's important to do so on a regular basis. The most effective form of exercise has been found to be weightlifting, short distance running, sprinting, walking, high-intensity interval, metabolic conditioning, gymnastics, and mobility training. You can find more information on effective exercises through many resources. A lot of paleo resources include extensive descriptions of exercise and how that should be incorporated into the paleo lifestyle. Another important paleo habit is to sleep more and stress less. Sleep is considered extremely important to this lifestyle, and a lot of advocates suggest that you should have at least 8 hours of sleep per night and insist that we keep our level of stress low. Because when you live in a constant state of stress, it's actually been found to have a detrimental effect on the body. So for example, improper sleep patterns and a consistent elevated stress level can cause a disruption in the cortisol production in the body. And cortisol production should be at its highest level when you're walking and at its lowest level just before bed. But because of stress that we experience throughout the day and lack of sleep, that can often increase cortisol production. Cortisol is an important hormone. It's involved in the adrenal system. But when these levels are in constant disarray, it can wreak havoc on the adrenal system. And that includes your thyroid. That can cause weight gain, adrenal fatigue, thyroid disease, all of which can be very harmful to someone's health. So where do you start? Well, the amount of information available about the paleo diet can be overwhelming. So it's best to do your homework before you decide if it's right for you. You can find lots of books and podcasts available on the subject. There's also online forums and blogs that have helped to grow the paleo community virtually. If you do choose to embark on this journey to take better health, take advantage of these resources and support. The community is always growing and learning.